initials for Salone. So there. Thank you, Julie, for the inspiration. First of all, thank you so much for having me. Before I start, I would like all of us to observe a moment of silent reflection, starting now. Two cousins, Sawa and Amadou, were 15 and 16 respectively, and we had never traveled without our parents. We sat with other families in a tiny 24-seater bus and rode from morning to night through armed checkpoints until we crossed the border. Once we got to Guinea, we went straight to the Sierra Leone embassy. People were everywhere when the gates opened around midnight to let us in. Refugees slept in the garage, on the ground, inside the offices, on the floor, and on the tables. Thankfully, we slept on the embassy floor for just one night. My mother, a diplomat in Ethiopia, had arranged for us to spend the rest of our time in Guinea at the Ghana High Commission. We spent 2 months in Guinea before we joined my mom in Addis, and a year later, I joined my father here in the US in Maryland. I was a refugee for 2 months, but that experience set me on the path that I'm on today. My fate would have been different if I'd been born into any of the families in my community. And knowing that it was good fortune that saved me has always made me feel that I had to pay forward with service. I finished high school in Maryland and won a full ride to Harvard College thanks to the Bill and Melinda Gates Millennium Scholarship Program. At Haverford, I was encouraged to lead and inspired to serve. Mountain Beyond Mountains, Paul Farmer's biography, was assigned reading in one of my classes, and Paul's story made me believe one person could make a difference. My heart turned to Sierra Leone. I felt I had a debt to pay. My therapist recently gave me a phrase for that feeling. She called it survivor's guilt. I think it's a little bit of that, but also understanding that my class and education have afforded me privileges. To whom much is given, much is required. I returned to Sierra Leone in the summer of 2003 to volunteer to teach English to 4th and 6th graders 2 years after the war ended. Most of my students in the 4th and 6th grade were teenagers. Every year in college, I went back to the Forum for African Women Educationalists to teach. When I learned they had never been to the library, as I had been as a girl growing up in Sierra Leone, I organized a field trip to the Sierra Leone Library Board. I wrote plays for them to express themselves and taught them hip-hop anthems. My favorite, I Know I Can Be What I Want to Be. If I work hard at it, I'll be what I want to be. That one was from Nas. I taught at FAWE for 4 summers, including my last year of college. I saw my students graduate and go on to junior secondary school. While I lost touch with them, some of them have found me on Facebook. And over the years, we've connected. There are 2 that stand out. One of my students now works as a reporter at the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Service, and another, Madiana, who I've met several times since we connected online, is now a professor of linguistics at Gala University. After Haverford, I decided to move back to Sierra Leone. I felt called to serve. In the summers I had gone home to volunteer, it was clear to me that so many children and young people had been left behind. In my community in Murraytown, where I'd grown up, which I consider a good part of town, my childhood friends had not gone far in school. Not a single one of the kids that I grew up with, the girls, had finished secondary school. Each one dropped out by JSS to have a baby, and they never re-enrolled. Without an education, their choices for work were petty trading and fishmongering. Their earnings were limited, but worse than that, they had no self-belief. As young women, they were more likely to stay in abusive relationships. They were less likely to seek prenatal care. And when they lost their babies in infancy, they believed that their death was caused by witchcraft. The value of education in Sierra Leone is about much more than literacy. Education decides the quality of life, and in some cases, knowing when and how to access medical care, it impacts health outcomes and life expectancy. My grandmother was 15 when she was taken out of school so she could marry. While she was literate, she never got beyond the 6th grade. Her life mantra, however, was simple. Gal pikin for go school. My mom was the first in our family to go to college. She graduated from SUNY New Paltz. And when I moved back to Sierra Leone in 2007 after undergrad, my grandma let me know that she expected me to get a master's. The last conversation we had before she passed away from cancer in 2010 was the call I made to let her know I'd been accepted to study journalism at Columbia University. I'm the first woman in my family to get a master's degree. I lived in Sierra Leone from 2007 to 2010 before leaving for grad school, and it was hard. Nothing I had learned at Haverford could prepare me for the overt sexism and sexual harassment I faced as a TV producer. I was just out of college and very broke, trying to tell diverse stories about Sierra Leone, a break from the media's death, disease, and destruction. I felt I could serve my community by creating content to capture our resilience, creativity, and culture. I wanted to change the narrative about Sierra Leone, but to get my TV show to broadcast, I needed sponsorship. In every company I went to, I met men who would give me meetings. Yes, we want to hear about your show. It's a very good idea. But instead, they would proposition me. They liked my show, but they demanded transactional sexual relationships in exchange for sponsorship. Thankfully, I could walk away from those situations with my integrity intact and my head held high, even though I was very, very broke, because I knew I could create other opportunities for myself, and I have. I took a break from producing the TV show and I went to graduate school. After I graduated, I moved to Ghana and I founded a marketing company. At first, it was just me, working out of coffee shops and hotel lobbies. Today, I have 5 core staff members and 5 support staff. After taking a 7-year break from the TV show, I returned to it in 2018, and the show now broadcasts continent-wide on DSTV. I would be in production for a new season if not for the pandemic. But during the pandemic and the hiatus from the show, I've published 2 early reader children's books to teach vowel sounds and celebrate Sierra Leonean culture. I've had a world-class education, and as a result, I have created opportunities for myself and for others. I've had my choice of career. I've been able to walk away from difficult situations also. Sadly, I'm not the norm, but I should be. Every girl in Sierra Leone should have the opportunity to learn so that they can grow up to have the same freedoms, to have a choice between girlhood or motherhood. Without quality education, the prospects for girls in Sierra Leone are grim. 1 in 3 will be forced into early marriage, and 1 in 3 will be a mom before their 19th birthday. But it's more than that. It's a future where they can have more choices. When Bidemi Carroll asked if I would be interested in joining the board, it was an emphatic yes. I didn't need to be convinced. I've seen many NGOs come and go since I started returning to Sierra Leone in 2003, and many have left the communities they served worse off. Since I first heard of Schools for Salone in 2010, 3 things have struck me over the years. The first, they're culturally considerate, and by this I mean they understand and respect Sierra Leonean customs and traditions, which can slow things down, but they're so necessary. Schools for Salone is radically collaborative. They center Sierra Leoneans at the heart of education service delivery. The organization might have scaled faster if Cindy had sold herself as a white savior, but I have seen how thoughtfully she has navigated that delicate balance between trying to tell her founder's story that's true without taking agency from community members and partners on the ground. The organization is also heart first. Every member of the board and everyone that I've met affiliated with Schools for Salone is driven by love and service to humanity. Born in Freetown the year before Cindy got there. And after some of you had already left. I'm not saying that to show how very young I am, but rather to highlight yours and Cindy's long-standing service to Sierra Leone. Your commitment to education in remote communities in need is why I had to be here today. So many of you in this room have been showing up for Sierra Leone from before I was alive. So, in my mother's native tongue, Momoyo, in the Mende language, Baikawe, in Fulani, Baraka, and in my father's language, Creole, Unatenki. Thank you on behalf of all the Sierra Leoneans in this room and at home for enabling Schools for Salone to make education more accessible, more effective, and more inclusive, especially for girls. The government of Sierra Leone has made great strides in recent years to increase access to education. Some 2 million children are enrolled in school at all levels. While this is an impressive achievement, only 3% of children in grades 2 and 3 are reading at their level. The government is doing everything it can to bring quality back to education. But still, small community-driven organizations like School for Salone have an important role to play. National government policy in Sierra Leone rarely survives from one administration to the next. There is no telling if the current emphasis on education will continue 5 years from now or after elections in June 2023, if a new government is elected. So we must continue to serve Sierra Leonean communities, no matter what. A building does not make a school, and every school in Sierra Leone is not a place of learning. With your support today, Schools for Salone will not only build more schools in last mile communities in Sierra Leone, but it will also train more teachers who will improve literacy rates. Your donations will provide reproductive health education to girls who will, for the first time, have an opportunity to talk about their bodies and their menstrual cycles without any stigma. You will support the construction of more libraries that stock my book and other culturally relevant reading and learning materials. And when you support Schools for Salone, it will not be because of anything I've said here today or the video you're about to watch. You'll support this organization because, like Cindy and every School for Salone board member, you're driven by love and service to humanity. Thank you.